I think you are absolutely the best example of the added value of startups and of young startups here in the Baltic states. And it is certainly an added value for anyone thinking about new product development, also taking that security aspect into consideration. And I'm very happy now to have another Jānis Sārts, who many of you may know in a different capacity. He was the State Secretary at the Ministry of Defense not so very long ago, and now you are the Director of the Strategic Communications Center here in Riga on the other side of the bridge. And I'm particularly pleased that you have that security perspective, also from the societal resilience perspective, national security perspective, that you can share some thoughts on what you see are the biggest threats or maybe also opportunities for perhaps the not so benign actors in cyberspace that we are now having to face. Thank you. And give him a round of applause as well.
Hello. Let us all go to the big picture. And first, I'd like to ask you a question. What is a digital world? If I would ask you, give me one picture to describe that, what would you say what that picture is? Well, I know this is a Nordic audience. I don't expect actually answers, so I was just kidding. To describe the way I see the digital world, it's a person at a device. Is it computer? Is it a smartphone? Or anything more fancy than that? And when we discuss the digital, we tend to look at the technology piece of it. But what I want to concentrate is that only when we look at a human and the technology together, we really see the whole picture. And the technology piece of it is changing. It's very dynamic. Today is going to be different than tomorrow. Day after tomorrow is different again. But then the human piece is basically the same. And I would start to look at this cybersecurity from that perspective, because humans bring into the picture the human motivation sets. It's interest for a better life, more luxury, more purpose, acclaim, fame, influence, power. All of these are human motivations that we exert in a physical world, but now we are exerting also in a digital world. And in the same way as in the physical world, there are people that play by the rules, or actors that play by the rules. Also in the digital world, there are actors that play without the rules. And that is where I think we have to start our view of the cybersecurity, because there will be criminal groups acting in that space and trying out all this new technology for their gain. There will be groups, different lobby interest terrorism, that are going to use the same space for their own advantage. And there will be countries. So the human dimension is not that different, but it's the enabling part of the technology that changes the picture. When I look of what is what people say in the new era, the new oil is data, or one would call the information. The information we understand from the technical side of the house, how we use it, how we sell it, how we fine-tune for the data, based on data, how we collect. But then if we look from the human perspective of the things, data or information around us is making our perception of the world or reality around us. And that perception of the reality or what is the world around us makes us behave in a particular way. What it makes the impact on the information becomes weaponized. And that is where we see more and more trends today that information is used increasingly as a weapon. And at different dimensions. You can look at individuals, phishing email. You understand the worldview of a particular person and you design the information in a way that is appealing and he reacts in a particular way. You can understand the attitudes of a specific group. Rather infamous terrorist group, Daesh, for their recruitment purposes, are designing their social media products to look like a shooting game. Because there's a whole lot of people that have been grown up with this shooting game approach. And when somebody says, well, basically you can go back to the physical world and do the same thing and design the sales pitch in a recognized way, that is using that for a particular behavioral change. And beyond that, you can use the same kind of information to affect the audiences. Because it's interesting that in a way we live in an era where all information is available and there is so much of it. But there is a paradox in it. Well, we have that all available through all the devices that you're now looking at in. You actually go into your own bubble. And that is that you don't really take a benefit of actually searching and looking for yourself. Because there's so much of it. You rather retract yourself back into your information bubble or ecosystem. And it's interesting where, once again, human nature kicks in. You start to view the facts not vis-a-vis all the information, not vis-a-vis how truthful or is it real, but does it correspond to my worldview? And if it starts going that road, you get people detached from the realities and react and behave and expect to behave in a particular way. And of course, one thing is when you talk to a special community like this one, where people are really into innovation, are trying to find new ways. But don't forget, there's a large other segments of society existing in the same area, but with a very different motivation sets. So when I see what the future is bringing us, I think the first thing, and I would say at a personal level, there will be increased concern of the security in a digital world. So if I would argue for any kind of new startup products, I would say the ones that have built-in security features would have a competitive edge. Probably not now. People are not yet there to realize how vulnerable they personally are vis-a-vis their own data. But the more we'll see incidents around us, either that would be e-medicine, the way President Ilves described the potential problem, or that would be one smart city that is properly hacked with all the consequences. People will start realizing. So you would have a change of an attitude in a personal level. But there is a bigger problem, in my view, in the future. The Digital Freedom Festival, in a way that, in a nutshell, puts the environment in which this world you're designing, the startups are living in, requires. It requires freedoms. It requires global networks. It requires freedom of experimentation, choices, and options. But it is interesting that as we speak, the technologies that are developed by this world, social networks, connectivity, and etc., are basically used by the people, all large groups of society that want a different world, that would actually want to change the parameters upon which the tech community succeeds, to go away from freedoms, to go away from globalization, as much as possible go away from the connectivity. And that is where some of the references back to the Brexit, the sentiments of the US presidential elections. So here, I would not want to leave you with the notion that is it the end of the elected democracy and the changing of the systems within which the tech world is going to develop. But I would rather say to you, innovation and putting new products is increasingly not going to be sufficient, because this community will have to look and think about the ways you guard these freedoms that make this all possible, how your new startup ideas and products enable that to continue. And I hope we'll all succeed in that. Thank you.